And we are back with another morning roast edition of the Black with No Cream podcast, where every Wednesday morning we deep dive into creative topics with the goal of giving you a daily dose of motivation and inspiration. I'm your host, Ben Haggerty, aka Ben Realverse World. This is my co-host, David Malave. Dave, how you doing on this fine Wednesday morning?
I'm doing good, man. We got some exciting things to talk about today, so let's get into it.
The topic is the 3-step process to enhance your video editing skills, featuring director Mike Parenteau. Mike is a director, DP, editor who creates high-budget commercials for brands like Ford, Audi, Mercedes, the NBA. I mean, there's so many others. I can't even name all of them, but he really knows his shit when it comes to editing high-level commercials, so these tips are gonna bang today. But before we dive into today's episode, we just want to announce our latest contest, which starts today. We have teamed up with Epidemic Sound and Mike to bring you the commercial cut challenge. All right, I know coronavirus, we've all been stuck inside. We haven't been shooting anything lately. We haven't been really able to edit much because no one's being creative and shooting content. And we wanted to find a way to, I don't know, give you guys something to do and flex your creative abilities in a contest that is just for editors. I think this one's going to be really dope. I know we have a lot of, you talk about the footage. How much footage we got from Mike?
We got 72 clips, man, of this footage is insane. Like the fact that anyone can access this footage and put an edit together is like the dopest thing.
Right.
It's like high level red footage that he shot on a spot commercial, and we'll save like what the footage is actually about when you download it. But the challenge is simple, and that's just, we want you to cut the illest 30-second commercial that you possibly can, utilizing only Mike's footage and Epidemic Sound's library for your score and sound design.
All right, and I'm excited for this. Not only just to challenge you guys as editors and to see what you guys can produce, but also, you know, we're not going to do a contest with no prizes. Feel me?
Never.
So you're probably like, well, what are the prizes, Ben? Let me tell you, all right? I low-key want to win this prize because I don't have it, but we're going to give it, first place is getting the illest one. It's a Samsung 49-inch ultra-wide curved 4K monitor. I think it's 4K, but it's the big ass monitors that are just like super wide and give you tons of real estate. So I know when you open up Premiere or Final Cut, your eyes are literally scrolling back and forth, and you have no need to worry about your timeline ever being too short again because it's gonna be so big.
Yeah, that's sick.
That one's really dope. So I'm excited for that. On top of that, we're giving a 1-year subscription to Epidemic's commercial plan. I've been using Epidemic for a few years. I linked up with them through a person in Iowa, actually, which is super cool. And I've had access to the platform, and I've used it on a ton of my jobs. I've used it on personal projects. We use it on Black with No Cream all the time. I'm pretty sure the Morning Roast theme song came from Epidemic. Like, we use it for everything, and they have so many sound effects. And to be able to use that platform has been awesome. So we're giving you a 1-year subscription, a free subscription to their commercial plan, which is $300. So you're getting that for free. What else do we got, Dave? We're
gonna just go ahead and give you a how to charge a client guide and a Black with No Cream mug.
Right.
That's for first place. So that's what everything you get for first place. But we're also not leaving second and third out either. And the 2 runner-ups will get a $300 and a $200 Amazon gift card, respectively, to spend on what you want.
Cha-ching.
You'll also get 6-month free subscriptions to Epidemic's commercial plan.
Goddamn.
And we'll also give you a how to charge a client guide and a fresh mug to add to that.
Yeah, like, okay, we were thinking about like maybe we could get, you know, it's editors, we were like for sure a monitor. Then we were like maybe we could buy someone like a Fire like keyboard and mouse or whatever. But then everyone's so particular with the way they edit and shit, so we're like, all right, we'll just get some Amazon gift cards and you guys can get whatever you want. If you want to use it for editing, fire. If you want to use it to buy some protein powder for the gym that probably just started opening near you, go for it. That'll be dope. We're excited for this, though. The prizes are awesome. And to register, there's a link in the description, obviously. We got it down there. You can go there. You sign up for a 30-day free trial of Epidemic Sound. And from there, you'll be able to download the zip folder with all the footage. And for as far as the commercial plan, you can cancel anytime. But this will give you a free chance to like explore the platform and test it out and see how it goes. But that's it.
And then you get the footage right there on your desktop. You can start editing right then if you want to.
Yeah, and for my people that love editing, they want the ProRes, we're giving you an H.264 file so that the whole zip folder is smaller, but within there, there's a README link. Just click that and you can download the ProRes if you want it for more color depth and all that stuff too. So it'll be dope. But we're excited to see what you guys create. This is going to be an awesome contest. It ends on July 12th, and we're picking the winner on the 15th. So, you know, get out there, start cutting right now. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us on all platforms. We're listening. So
yeah, the as always, the website has the official rules and the way that you should submit, who you need to tag, hashtags, all that stuff. And it's 6 p.m. On the 12th to submit. So just make sure you read all those and get that footage and you can get started.
Sheesh. We're back at it again, man.
Yes, sir.
You know, our contests keep getting iller every single time, and we keep running them, so it's been cool. And I think that is dope because we get the feedback from y'all.
And
I know
also,
you've been waiting for one.
we should mention just how ill all the past winners and runner-ups have done since then.
Yeah.
And it'd be dope to bring them on actually and have them talk about their experience. But these contests are great platforms to be able to get your skills out there to brands that wouldn't necessarily see your work.
Exactly.
And also just gives you a chance to, like, in this case, just flex your skills on some footage that maybe you never get to have access to, because maybe you don't get to work with Reds, or you don't get to work with, super experienced high level DPs that can hand you some sick footage to, like,
it's a dream
to put your sauce on. So.
And I think that's what's cool. We can just keep talking about this shit because I get inspired by it. But it's like with having contests, it's the ability not just to win some shit, right? It's, oh, cool, I can go win like a monitor. That is cool. But being able for Epidemic to see your skill set. I mean, these are people that hire creators to make campaigns and things like that. So
and Mike.
That's what I was gonna say next. Is Mike is the illest, yo. If you can flex your editing skills, Mike's shooting all the time. And the majority of the time, he's editing his own commercials. That's why this episode today is fire, because he breaks that down for you. But eventually, when you become a director that's so overwhelmed with projects, having a fire editor to work aside you is key. So like, this is an opportunity just for him to now show notice. And on top of it, for us to. I need editors. There's tons of times where we need editors. So I don't know, that you should use these contests as a way to to like dip into different lanes and understand that you can kind of benefit from every single angle of it on top of getting the bag. All right. So
yes,
anyways, we're done with this shit. Let's get into the episode. Today's fire. And
also, if you're any video editor for anything, these tips are going to bang. But if you're listening to this, if you're going to be in this contest, I would take these 3 tips straight from the source and apply them to your submission, because that's definitely going to get you the best chance to win.
That's a fact. All right, cool. Let's get into probably the illest intro to any episode you've ever seen in your life.
Welcome to the morning roast, a place where you will get the most info from a deep dive into the topics that really need life, with your host Ben and Dave, coming to you live today. Grab your cup of joe and take some fucking notes. You bitch.
Dave, I'm gonna need your help right now to bring a round of applause for my boy Mike, who's calling in from Canada right now. What up, Mike? What up?
Thanks, boys.
What's up, fool? How are you?
Up? Good. How are you guys doing?
We just miss you.
Pumped and excited.
Yeah, we miss you living in LA, man. We miss you living here.
I miss it too, but I'm loving my little bubble in Canada right now, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I want to first off thank you for, for people who don't know, you've been on the podcast multiple times. We've talked about many topics and told your story, which has been awesome. So circle back and listen to those. But I want to thank you for giving us the footage for this contest and collaborating with us so that Black Window Cream has an opportunity to edit some fire footage that you shot in your Red. I don't know when you shot this content, but there's 72 clips in this folder that everyone can download for this contest. And I think it's just really cool for people to have an opportunity to edit like a high level DP, director, editor's content from anywhere. I don't know where everyone's listening to from right now, but you're going to have a chance to work on Mike's footage that he shot. I want to hear the backstory of this. And it's a spec commercial, which it wasn't for a specific brand, but you use that to get jobs. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about the footage everyone's going to start working on?
Yeah, totally. So this footage basically came from the idea of, like, this was a long time ago. It was quite a few years ago. Well, when I say long time, I'm talking like maybe 4 years ago or something, 5 years ago. But we wanted just to, like, me and a few homies here in Nelson, Canada, we wanted just something to shoot that, like, it was just cool. It looked cool. And we had this opportunity where one of our friends was like, hey, he's a firefighter. And he's like, hey, we just built this test site where we practice firefighting. And we're like, okay. And he's like, yeah, it's basically like a bunch of big sea cans. And we like smoke it up. And we put all our gear on, break stuff. It's like built like a home inside. It's almost like a trailer home. But like full scale with levels and stuff. And he's like, do you guys ever want to like shoot in something like that? And we're like, oh, this is it. Like, perfect. And we're like, can we like light fires and stuff? He's like, yeah, man, we can do whatever we want. We're like, oh, yes. So we all go to the drawing board, right? And we're all just like frothing off this location. And we're like, okay, we got, Leo who fights the fires. He's got all the gear. He knows what to do. We got like these crazy industrial smoke machines. and zero limitations. We can get away with murder basically in here. So we were just like, what could this mean? What could this do? What could this help us with? And basically we were all just like, okay, well, this could be an opportunity for a spec spot commercial. Okay, what do we want to capture? What are the kind of emotions, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we want to mix it with something else, not just firefighting. Like, what are we interested in? We're obviously interested in sports at that time. And yeah, it just went from there, and we just kind of, like, we'd go pick up couches from buddies' homes and put them in there. We lit them on fire. We threw them downstairs. We just wrecked the place, and it was awesome. It was amazing. We had just a small lighting package, but enough homies with enough drive to, like, make something really cool.
Yeah, 4 years later, looking at that footage, it's still just so clean. Like it's so well done, and it has that, it meets the standard, which is cool, that you set still today. You know what I mean? Maybe quality, or maybe you would have shot it a little different if you would have done it today. But I mean, for 4 years old footage, like the shit looks amazing. And I think it's also cool because
what we had access to was like stuff we still don't get access to today unless you got $500,000 in the bank account. You couldn't get away with that with an agency.
Right.
We broke way too many rules.
Right.
So in the sense, yeah, it's old. We didn't have much, but we had a lot, and we didn't have like barriers.
That's what I was gonna say. It's so cool how you have the opportunity to capture whatever you wanted, and you guys use that to your advantage. And what I'm excited to show people is your actual edit that you have of this, because it's amazing. But we're not gonna show people your edit until after the submission deadline happens, because we don't want to give you any clues or ideas of how you should cut this footage. So I'm excited to see what people do when they're preparing this content. You know what I mean? I'm sure you're curious of like how people will, I guess, take your media and turn it into their own story, or a different type of story than what you would have thought. But it's gonna be really cool, man.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. The goal is like just to think outside the box with this footage. Think like, start from base level, ground zero, kind of like what we did when we heard about the opportunity. Pretend you're in that position and like go nuts from there. Like the beauty of specs is you can manipulate them. You can add certain elements to make them whatever you want to make them. There's nobody breathing down your neck, no agency telling you that you have these certain brand, logistics to work with. You make it what you want to make it, and it's your best work.
I think that goes to what we were talking about, not having to, you're not confined to a storyboard. I think as commercial editing grows, as you become a bigger commercial editor, and you're working with these big agencies, they're just feeding you storyboards, and you're kind of just like, okay, copy paste here. You know what I mean? At a certain point, it's like you're drag and dropping everything into their order that they want, and then putting your sauce on it. But this, you have complete freedom to test the limits. And I think that's what we want to, we're like judging people on, is seeing how creative they can be, utilizing music, creative with the sound design, creative with the way they cut the content and use those moments. But I guess let's get into the different steps. Let's set this up.
So I mean, that's a perfect lead, because if you're putting yourself in a position of this contest or any other position, then you get director DP Mike's footage and you sit down, like what's the roadmap, what's the stages of how you can craft and create like something that's going to be like a very compelling, epic edit, right? So we decided to break that down, and then we're going to have Mike weigh in. But step one, we decided to call is understand your footage, and the importance of really, really analyzing and diving really deep into the footage you have, understanding everything that is given to you, because in order to craft a story, in order to create a direction, in order to decide what emotion you want to pull, you have to understand exactly what you have. So Mike, when I know you edit a lot of your stuff, but you in a sense of when you start your edit and you're trying to dive into the footage, like what's your main objective and what's your mindset to make sure that you organize everything properly? Yeah,
so for me, selects is everything. Like when I first dive into the project, it's Christmas morning every time. No matter if that project's shooting a hamburger that doesn't move for 20 seconds or stuff like the footage you guys are working with, I love it. And the reason why I love it is because of my process, I think. And so for me, the biggest thing is, being organized, but knowing everything I got and stretching that as far as possible, because it's like those little nuggets that you'll find hidden here and there that you didn't even think of while you're shooting makes an edit from 8 out of 10 to 10 out of 10. So for me, it's like diving deep, organizing it all in like certain locations or feels, or depending on what kind of commercial it is, but just having it all grouped together so it makes sense visually for me. And then I get off the computer and I go to my sticky board or my whiteboard. I have a huge 8-foot by 10-foot whiteboard right beside me here. And I go there and I just write down everything I've got. You know, for example, for this, I'd be like, you know, guy walking up through smoke, or just certain things that are just like triggering moments. And then I can see it visually all on one board. And that's where I craft my story from, right? And or dial it in if it's already crafted.
Yeah, and understanding the message. Typically, if you're working with some sort of brand, they're going to be feeding you a message that they want accomplished in that, and that's going to dictate how you create that. But also, I think what I like to do too is by looking at I've seen the mistake made too often where, say it's a music video or commercial, and someone just hops in, they just start kind of like clicking through clips in a bin, and they're just kind of like checking a couple things real quick, trying to find maybe one moment. They're missing so much value there in all the other clips or all the raw moments. So by having that long string out and going through every single clip and understanding from start to finish, like you said, you're going to find these key moments, and then you can separate those and organize those. So if you know, say you have a bunch of medium shots of a person, the main character, and you can organize where those are, or you have establishing shots. Cool, let's put these over here. Where are all my establishing shots that I have to work with? So when I open this thing up and I want to establish the setting, cool, I have 5 clips or I have 15 clips, and this is what my options are. Now you can pick which one of those are the best, you know? So I think really taking the time in that part, like so many people just want to dive into creating the edit, and I think being able to take the time and really analyze the content that you have will help you in the long run, because you're also memorizing what you have. You're being able to create the library in your head and then taking it to a whiteboard or write it on paper and just really organize. All right, cool, maybe I could kind of connect the dots here, and then this would make this part make sense, you know, as you build story and so on, right?
Yeah, like this all speaks to like creative editing, which I think is the goal of this contest. And in the industry where edits make or break, like, you know, it's not, you're not just getting a storyboard and a script, and if your edit's not dialed to that script, you're fired. This is a different kind of editing. You're the director, you're in the driver's seat. You make or break an edit. You can make it into just another run-of-the-mill edit, or you can dive into something deep, creative, and make it amazing. Like, there's so many times. There's a few editors I know and directors I know. One would be Lee Powis. You can check him out. But everything he edits, like the way he directs, he'll usually jump into the editing suite right away, and he'll just start. He's an artist. I wouldn't, like, not even an editor, a straight up artist. And he'll think of these crazy ways to transition, you know, in and out of music, using certain tracks, blah, 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 like with transitions, like unbelievable. And I know there's a ton, you know, in Black Milk Cream as well, as stuff I've seen on Facebook. People are just awesome and like so creative. And that's the difference, like rather from script editing to creative editing, you know, you can do with technology now, and, you know, 8K footage, 6K footage, 4K footage, you can do whatever you want.
I think it's so important in this step to think about too. Like, in order to have that type of creative freedom, like you're saying, like to be able to really come up with, oh, this is how I'm gonna go from here to this, or I could start here and then come out of music here. It's like, to have that power as an editor, you need to like so intimately understand the footage you have, like at every level, and understand and be thinking of it. When we were off the call, Mike, you talked about how it's one thing to pull selects, but even understanding the message and the story you're trying to tell when you're pulling selects allows you to like understand the meaning behind the footage that you're pulling. And it makes for a more purposeful process, because you're pulling with purpose and you're already anticipating what it might be used for. And then you can be thinking of ideas as that's happening. So do you have like, can you like delve into that further?
Totally. Like when I pull selects, I don't just do it once. Like I'll narrow everything down. Like if you go into one of my projects files, you'll see like selects 1 large, selects 1 medium, selects 1 tight, selects 1 edit, usually I'll say. And that's where I'll pull the edit. But the way they're pulled, it's not necessarily like favorite shots, more favorite shots, more favorite shots. It's like favorite shots, more favorite shots, but shots that help the edit. And then what needs to make this edit work? What do I really want? That's what's in there. Sometimes you gotta kill your babies, throw out the shots that you love, and choose a shot that's story driven, has purpose, has meaning, that drives your, you know, shows your viewers where you're going with this edit. And as much as we want it to be all bangers, all the best shots, sometimes that's just not the way it goes. but that's where an editor has the power and also needs to see it in a different way. You can't edit like a DP. You got to edit like a storyteller.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway from this section, and when you are diving through your footage, is understanding that organization is going to be your biggest leader in the whole project. Being able to stay as organized as possible, really taking the time. It may take you a half a day, a full day, 2 days to really go through everything and understand. I mean, if you think about it, if you were shooting a commercial that was 3 days of shooting and you were rolling cameras all days with multiple cameras, that takes just as long, if not longer, probably longer, to have sat through all of that media, especially if you weren't on set, to sit through all that media and truly understand what's there. So giving yourself that time to absorb that is going to help you be able to determine what's going to make this commercial make the most sense possible at the final stages, you know? So definitely organization is massive.
It's also, yeah, it's all the power, and just to hammer it into, like, when you're in the edit, like, and you need something, and then you're having to spend time to go find it because, oh, where's that shot? And you just like diving into the footage, it slows that creative process, and also it makes it harder to get in and flow. But if you're just like, oh, I know where this is, and you have like, it's like I'll have all your tools at your disposal, and setting time to like organize the same way, like if you're cooking, we made this joke earlier, but like, you know, a chef will prepare all the ingredients first. All the onions are chopped. Everything is chopped and boiled and put in places so that when the cooking happens, everything's at your hands. Now you're not like going and grabbing the onions and cooking it while this is cooking. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you want it all there. I think
there's a million ways to organize footage too. Like, it's a creative process in itself. Like, it's not this mundane task where you just want to go and you got to put A here, B here, and C here. It's like the way you organize it. Like, most people probably wouldn't even understand if they went into my select. They're like,
right,
no, this shot should really be over here, or this shot should be grouped with these shots. And it's like, it depends per project, but that's my sense of creativity as well. That's where it starts for me. It's just when I organize it.
I love that. I think this can glide us into step number 2, which is sound carries the vision. That's what we're going to call this. When we get to the music part, and this is what's cool about Epidemic letting us do this contest from the first place, like them having this sea of just different soundtracks on top of sound effects and sound design and Foley and all that shit. Being able to work with a platform or have access to music, maybe you're hiring someone direct to make your music for you, however you're doing it, that is almost just as important as the footage. Being able to understand the mood and the vibe with the way you're going to portray the emotion and attack the heartstrings of someone to sell the product in a commercial, it all stems from sound. So I think that this would be interesting to hear from your standpoint of like when you're going into a project. So say you just downloaded your 72 clips, you've never seen it before, you just went through it, you pulled all your selects, we did all that, we organized it, we understand what we have to work with. Now we want to build our emotion, and it's a creative edit again. So whoever's listening to this right now, your emotion may be different than my emotion, and that's what's going to be fun about seeing the end product, is because someone may make this super upbeat, some people may make this super slow and really moody. So for you, if you sit down, what is your process for finding music and finding sounds that really elevate the footage itself?
So basically, there's this really cheesy phrase, but I'm going to say it anyways, but it was about this documentary that I was working on for just about music, the power of music. And like this phrase that kept coming up is like, music is the language of emotion. And so that's kind of like what you're talking about. That's, it evokes emotion. It tells a story. It carries a story. It can change a story. And it impacts the viewer in a way that visuals can't. And especially the mix of the two is like the ultimate recipe, right? And so obviously that's a huge key to an edit. Whether you're jumping in and out, multiple tracks, whatever, you're changing moods here and there. But I would say for me, my process is like, while I'm pulling selects, I'm either collecting a playlist that while I'm doing that simultaneously, or usually I'll do that even before I go to selects, and I'm listening to my playlist that's built for this piece while I'm pulling my selects, and you'd be surprised how much that will change your direction or your flow or whatever. Just when you hear a different type of song and you're watching a certain piece of footage while you're rolling through selects, you're like, oh, just triggered like a sick idea. The beat hit at a certain time when the movement happened, and you're like, oh, that was amazing. and it brings you down this other little rabbit hole, and of course you can get lost in it, but that's my process that helps me like dive in and really narrow down the mood or the vibe that I want when it comes to pairing the music with the footage and the edit. And then kind of once I narrow that playlist down to maybe like a top 3, I usually will lay out my footage in like the story arc I want. So beginning, middle, end, and that doesn't have to be literally. That just means in the edit, the way I want to place it out. And I'll chuck the tracks down underneath and just solo them and just like really feel it with the story. And that's where it really needs to connect for me. Like the track's got to connect with the visuals, and it's got to really click, or else I'm back to the drawing boards when it comes to the track.
I like how you gave an example before about how like you could go to like your favorite movie or favorite some sort of short film, something that you knew was music driven, and by listening to that you're kind of analyzing what you liked about that and maybe how that may attach itself to the project that you're working on. So if I went to Finding Nemo and I liked Finding Nemo, and there's one scene where it's really dramatic, and I take the orchestra that was created there and I'm like, what do I like about that, and really break that apart. Utilizing that can help you identify maybe what it is that you're searching for when it comes to finding music, right?
Yes. So like that playlist that I make, which is never big. It's probably like, 6 or 7 songs usually I can narrow it down to. But how I come to creating that playlist, that was like, this has been a huge evolution this has been evolving for years for me, like this process. And I finally feel like it's starting to narrow down and like actually work really well. But to make that playlist, to find those tracks, like you said, I pull from stuff I love, whether it's commercials I love the vibe of that feel like kind of suit this piece, or that I just love and that are super catchy. Some, original soundtracks from movies that are really catchy that I just fall in love with. And I save notes like this all over the place, like on my phone, my computer, of just things I like. So I can pick from that, or I'm like looking to be inspired. I'm not saying I necessarily pull my playlist from the top 40, but it's just like, I pick certain things like, I really love this pad in this song. This is what I really love about it. Or I love that this is really ambient. It works really well. Right. Even though the footage is really chaotic, the soundtrack's really ambient. This violin is absolute fire. Like, I love this violin. Maybe something I would never choose to put in it, but for this, it's going to work amazing. X, Y, and Z. You go through that process, and that's how I narrow my search. So, ambient instrument is a violin, that's key instrument for there, blah, 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 blah. And you can cinematic or whatever, emotions like uplifting. I like how this track is, like, you really pick them apart, right, and see like, okay, this is really growing. The chord progressions is really uplifting, or it's sorrow or whatever. And you can narrow down your search, and it's not so much of like a needle in a haystack situation anymore.
For the contest, for the purpose of this contest, and when you go, like for me, when I've using Epidemic, when I go to that platform and I'm trying to find what that is, and I've kind of got honed in on the type of vibe or whatever it is, being able to tap in and you understand how to search for sounds is like it's an art in itself, is being able to really identify words that would make sense with sounds that are associated in your head. And I think that it's become easier, and I think you guys will learn this in the experience of, like, if you're doing Epidemic for the first time or whatever with the free trial, being able to go in and look at, okay, cool, what are categories that this may sound? What kind of drive am I going for? Is it going to be a thriller? Is it going to be really moody? Is it going to be really funny? What kind of sound am I looking for? The keywords and being able to search on those keywords is, especially even with sound effects. Sound effects are some of the worst things to try to find, because you're in your head, you're like, and you're like, how the hell do I search that? You know what I mean? And so you start just trying to find
sound
words
that I've never been able to find.
That
sound, the ramp that's like whoop 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 whoop, like it's like the opposite.
Yeah, it's like almost like a turbine, like a
what is
airplane. But that's honestly how your mind thinks, though, because you're like, you just came up with that sound. I know exactly what type of sound you're talking about. And in my head, that evokes like a turbine. So then I might search like airplane turbine sound effect and see if that got me there. You know what I mean? Then you're like, no, this ain't it.
Right.
Or whatever.
But that's what's good about being able to, if you can search off moods or if you can search off words or phrases or things that may bring that to light, it helps you track that down. But being able to identify that as an art and being able to really hone in on music. And I think a lot of people will go to a platform like this and just like go to, all right, cool, what's a song that's like Thriller or movie trailer? And they click that and they take the first 1, 2, 3 picks that they offer. Like sit there and really listen to music. I think we had a homie Red, he was on the podcast a while back and he was talking about this piece he made. It took him like 45 minutes to edit the actual video. He shot all the footage. It took him 45 minutes to edit, but he said it took about 6 hours for him to find the right song. Like he really just sat there and listened to music and tried to really figure out what song was going to fit this video. The edit was a breeze for him because he already just was like, oh, as soon as if I can find that song that's in my head, I already know how this shit's gonna lay out in the edit, and it's gonna be so easy to glide through and just knock it out. So it is something you really want to take time. It is commitment, yeah, for sure.
And I think it comes down because I remember, I don't know if you mentioned this, but yeah, like just to carry your point on the idea of like, it may be the first thing that people think of is, oh, I just need to find one song and then I'll lay it down and then that's how it is. And that's usually, and great edit can come from that.
Right.
But you also have sound design, which creates so much depth and layer and emotion and actually creates realism within the footage. That's important too, that you have to be searching for. Mm-hmm. And like, if there's anything to take away from this section, I think is like, music is a tool. So everything Mike described was about really analyzing what emotion and what connection the music is making to the footage and how that's driving, because it's not just a cool song, it's how is the music driving this piece forward, and that's a deeper search than just a song. And then on top of that, you have to understand what sound design will I need to create, like to really bring this piece to life. Because I can tell you, like, and you've seen edits, like people will post their edit without the sound, they'll just mute the sound and they'll post their edit with just sound effects, and you can see how it's almost its own, like that could be its own piece with just sound effects, because that's how layered and detailed it is.
Well, that's what I love about, I highly suggest as you guys start this, go find Mike's website and just dig through some of his past work, because what I love is how you utilize music and sound effects and sound design to create the entire 30 seconds. You take me through a whirlwind of emotions, because you could lead off with something that's like nice and slow pace and then really pick it up, but you transition. It could be a completely different song that you're using from between 10 seconds and 14 seconds, and you switch to that because you use creative sound design, and then you maybe went into a nice voiceover that you would take, which is also something I love that you do. Your talent in voiceover works it just changes moods, but that's what you're really good at, is identifying a mood that you want to attack and using sound to get us there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's funny because when it comes to sound design, I feel like I learned it the hard way, and I almost went a little overboard on it within my career. And because when one of my first big jobs was I was in-house directing at Red Bull, and I remember when I first went over to Europe out of Austria, because the headquarters is there. My first edit I ever delivered to them, I was so nervous. I was sweating buckets. I just shot in, I think it was Italy or something, our first shoot. And I was just like, I had stuff to prove. They just flew me out there, blah, 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 blah. And we shot this piece, and I did the edit on my laptop, I remember, in the back of this bus. And I remember sending it to them for the first time, and they asked me to come in to the office. And I was like, okay, this is either really bad or really good. Right. One or the other. But obviously I think it's really bad. And so I'm sweating it. I go in the office and they sit me down. They're like, do you know what, Mike? We loved your edit. We loved the use of the track you picked, blah, blah, blah. And the footage is amazing. But, and I was like, but, man. And then they're like, but it has no life. And I didn't use sound effects or any sound design. I didn't. That wasn't in my repertoire. Then I didn't really even know it existed. Like, I didn't get it. Like, I'd just mute it from the track, from the video track, and I didn't think it was something that you actually put in yourself. Like, That's how green I was when this happened. And fair enough. I think a lot of people don't really understand that. But this guy, this producer, he's just like, you need both. You need the life of the sounds to set you in your place. Or sometimes it's non-literal and it sounds like, like what we were just doing, the turbine sound or whatever that's used for a different reason, for ramps, whatever. That with the music, and then you mix. And then he gave me a whole lesson on mixing, how some come up, some come down. They play with each other. They play off each other. And ever since then, I went so heavy on sound effects, and I always have to pull it back in the end. But I believe in the two working together are huge. Like,
I agree.
Even if it's just subtle, like you hear just like a room tone with the soundtrack or whatever, or like, you know, the odd exterior sound, and some people won't even pick it up. You hear it on your phone, you probably won't even hear it on your phone.
You shot firefighters running through a house on fire, and you can watch that happen with just some sort of song playing, but you know what's really going to make me believe that there's a house on fire is being able to hear some fire. You know what I mean? But maybe, sorry, there's a free tip. Take that if you guys are editing this, but hey, let me hear the crackling of the wood burning. You know what I mean? Bring me there. Use whooshes and transitions like that to take me into the next spot. The shot doesn't have to have some sort of wild transition, but just cutting and using sound or some sort of effect to get me to that spot. Sound makes all the difference. I love that. That's so good.
And not even, and non-literal is something I'm learning even today. Like, I think of sound design now with music in even more of like a abstract way. Like, I'll think of a transition. Okay, here's this transition. I need something big to happen when the sound, you know, the song's sweet, it dips down, it gives room for a sound effect to come in. But say it's a guy like, you know, hitting something or whatever, like it's this big moment, rather than making just a big boom sound that's like typical what you would expect it to sound like. It's like, oh, what's big? Lightning strike. And you chuck a lightning strike in there, and then maybe mix that with the boom sound, but like you have this crack of the lightning, and it's, you know, there's no lightning around. It's totally non-literal, but it's a great way to, you know, experiment with sound design. It brings even more emotions, just little subtleties like that.
And it makes it exciting.
Yeah, that's so interesting too, because I always love that topic. It's like, sometimes the sound that you need isn't the literal sound of the thing that you're trying to sound design,
right?
Which is so interesting. Like, you know what I mean? You might have something dropping, but that, like a normal, like you said, a normal hit doesn't. But like a book, like sometimes it's been popular to like use page flipping to like the sound of a book flipping to transition between places, and that's something about that book flipping and like emote something different than just like a whoosh would,
right?
You know what I mean? Or like the like a triangle or something, you know?
Yeah.
I think that we can go into this. I think music for sure. Everyone your takeaways on that is just spend time. No different than pulling your selects and really analyzing the footage, is really understanding what the mood is going to be and how you can establish that with sound. So take that as you will, or just, you know, post one song on there and we'll just, you know.
All right, so step number 3, and this comes, this is Mike's phrase, so we're going to have him explain what it is. But it's in the editing process, and his goal is to engage, entertain, and inspire. So Mike, can you explain that motto?
That's a fire line.
Yeah, I think it's been a line that I heard from a mentor of mine years and years ago when I first started, and it's a line I think I've carried to today. And every time I think about whether I'm pitching something or I'm doing a creative edit or whatever, that line is true, and it's on sticky notes wherever I go. And basically, to kind of break it down, it's I like to divide my thoughts into those 3 different categories. So you have an engage. Like, engage is off the top for a reason, because you got 5 seconds in an edit to hook them and let them keep watching. You either win it or lose it there. And I believe that. I believe, because it happens to me too. Whether it's a trailer, you know, especially if it's a longer form edit, whether longer form means 2 minutes or 30 minutes, you literally don't have long to make sure they keep in the game. They stay there. And then you got to keep doing it until make sure they watch to the end. But engaging them right off the top. So whether that's, you know, a twist and it's story-wise, or it's a visual that's just like, boom, right off the top. They're like, what the heck am I getting into right now? I feel like that's important. Then entertain. Entertain's like, okay, what's going to keep them there? Usually that's the beat of the story, or that's the way you organize your footage, or that's your music, your voiceover, your, you know, whatever. It's the driving force. It's keeping that edit climbing, so they keep staying there. Then the third category would be inspire. And it's like, what's the end result? What do they walk away from? Like, what do they walk away with from watching this? What was your message? What do you hope they're going to feel? So when I'm about to do an edit, I'm trying to put myself in my audience's shoes and say, okay, what do I want to feel after I watch this? What's the goal? Why am I going to tell my homie? Why am I going to share it on whatever, social media or through a text, pass it on? Why? And I feel like that, all those three, if you have all those three, it's the perfect recipe. If you miss one, it can really hurt your edit in the end.
I love that. I think when as you get into that editing portion of the project and you really start to digest the content and put it together, understanding, there's always 3 acts and usually 3 acts in a film, right? And when we go through that, we go through the motions of learning something, seeing it grow, and then the final result of whatever it is. So as you're building that within your edit, I love how really when you crack it open and you try to decide what it is, we may know, it may be very obvious when you're editing, like, okay, this happens and this happens and this happens. And I think sometimes editors struggle with that problem where they may have like a really ill shot and it's so tight and you want to include it, but it makes the edit not work. Even though it's the dopest shot, you might have to lose that shot to make this story make more sense. And that sometimes becomes really complicated for people to be willing to give that clip up, maybe for this edit to flow a little bit easier, or maybe you try to work it in at the end but it still isn't working, so you might have to cut that clip out. And I think a lot of people run into that issue. Do you ever have that happen where that this is such a money shot and you believe it should be in this cut, but maybe it just doesn't make sense towards the story that you're building within the edit?
Happens all the time, and it's like something that bugs me every time it happens, because I always want to deal with it. I always want to have a reason to not have that problem, or to not throw it away, throw it in the trash can and feel like you'll never see that shot ever again, because the blood and sweat you went through to get that shot, or your crew had to get through to get that shot. But tell you the truth, I feel like sometimes I've gone to that point and like that's almost helped me create a twist and like kind of that more engaged category, or like change it up to just for me to get a shot in, and sometimes it's worked out. Sometimes I've forced a shot in and I know in my head, I'm like, I know this is ruining the edit, I know it's not helping the end goal, but it's my ego, and it ends up like, a few days later I go back in the project and I just chuck it because I've gotten over it. But it's important to, especially if you're the one that shot it or you're very involved in the production, it's really important to be able to have the skill to stand back, look at it from a non-biased point of view, and just be ruthless and just letting stuff go, not being attached to certain things, because in the end, everything you shot or everything you have should be good, should be great. That's the goal. But yeah, of course, some things are a little better to you, but it might not be better to other people, especially if it's not making the edit better.
Right. I like
so
that.
It's just like being able to stand back, just like, cool your jets a bit and just be like, okay, if I am not biased, is this shot worth it? Yes or no?
And honestly, by the time you put the video out, you're gonna low-key forget about that shot anyway. Like, as much as you love it, you're gonna love the cut that you have and be like, man, it would have been cool. But by the time you've seen it, you don't even think about that anymore. But it is an anxiety that I know a lot of people deal with.
On the flip side, I think as an editor, if you do leave it in, then that like little itch will stick with you when you watch that piece every time. You're like, damn, I shouldn't have kept it in, maybe. Right. Or like it'll always remind you. You'll always be reminded that you left it in. And that's what you said earlier. And I love the quote. I'm gonna keep it. Probably we'll post it on social media. But you said you can't edit like a DP. You have to edit like a storyteller, and that's where that comes in, because you are the DP of your project. So, like you said, you're having to like put yourself out of your DP shoes and put yourself in the storyteller's shoes, and not have a bias towards shots that you love when you got off set. The one thing I want to lead into is...
my advice for that would be like, chuck it in the reel.
Chuck it in the reel.
Don't chuck it in the bin, chuck it in the reel.
I like that. I like that a lot. What were we going to say?
I want to carry that into... like you said, can you talk about how important it is to you, the purpose of shots? Like, in my head, especially in a 30-second spot, and you obviously would know much better, but like every shot has to have like a purpose. Like, why is that shot going in the edit? Is it driving the story forward? Am I advancing the story? Is there an emotion there? Am I revealing something? Obviously, if it's a commercial, you shots have purpose in the sense of they have to show product, they have to reveal a detail, but carrying off the idea of not every shot can make it, like, how are you going about making sure that every shot is purposeful, you're engaging, you're entertaining, inspiring with like the entire edit, and you're not like losing people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's something I learn every time I jump onto my computer, tell you the truth, and I get better at. It's like if you go on my website, for example, anything that's cruising around 30 seconds, it's rare it'll actually be 30 seconds. It's usually like 41 or 38, and that is why, and the reason for that is because sometimes I have a hard time like really honing that in, right? Making sure every shot has purpose. If it doesn't, losing it. And it's, you know, it's a process. Like it's something you get good at. It's a skill. And it's a skill that I'm, you know, working on day in, day out. But it's like I said earlier, like you got to back up. You got to see it from a different perspective. You got to detach yourself from your point of view and try to get a different point of view when you're looking at the footage, when you're looking at the edit especially. I
was gonna say, I think that there's also something to note here of people, especially when you're in an editing competition, you're going against everyone else. Everyone else has the same tools you have. So how do you stand out? And I think one thing people lean on becomes like over editing a commercial. Like sometimes the footage can speak for itself. So there can be a simplistic route and being very minimalist with your approach to edit that could still drive in a really compelling story. But then I think there's a lot of people that will try to come up with a lot of new tricks and really throw some sauce on it. And sometimes that can kill an edit, is people trying to, every transition doesn't have to do some sort of like zoom in, zoom out, shake, whatever. It doesn't have to be, the editor doesn't need to be the star of the show. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes down to it, I don't think that the editor necessarily needs to always be the star of the show and really flex their muscles just as much as the DP or the director or whoever shot this footage flex their muscles. I think it needs to work hand in hand. You know what I mean? And I've learned that a lot when I'm working with branded clients, and I come in and I do my thing and I really love it. And then they come in and they love it too. And they're like, yeah, but I think maybe we do this. And maybe it's not something I agree with, but you have to meet each other in the middle to make a collaborative effort and to make the project have its own identity, versus it just being like, oh, that's a Ben edit because Ben just ripped through this thing and made put it in a bunch of boxes or whatever, like a stylistic choice. I just think that some people can overdo it because of it being an edit contest, which could kill the entire thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's like, you know, what Dave was talking to earlier, like purpose. Make sure every shot's got purpose. Like sometimes that means letting a shot breathe. You got 30 seconds. You let one shot breathe for 7 seconds. That's a huge percentage of your edit. Yep. But that 7 seconds could give you more than the 4 clips or whatever that you would fit in that 7 seconds otherwise.
Exactly.
Like you could pull more from that. And especially with music and sound and like it gives you even more chance when you let stuff breathe to, you know, enhance it with those elements. And I feel like, you know, a good edit does this, right? It's up and down. So you got some pace, depending on your subject, obviously, but some pace, then some breath, then some moments of stillness. You know, you got either a nice VO, a good message, whatever you're doing, however you're implementing that message. And it's all got to keep on that flow, but like inconsistency keeps the viewer in. Like you let them breathe for a second. Like if you look at, for example, a transition on my reel, you know, you sit and it's like this smoke and you hear the smoke or whatever, and then it's like an engine of a car coming up and you're like pop, 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 pop with a bunch of quick clips, and then it breathes again with like a aerial shot. Like things like that. I love that kind of stuff, me personally. And I know from stuff that I love that I watch of other people's work, it's a, you know, common way to carry someone through a piece.
No, I love that.
That's sick. It's like you're puppeteering almost, you know? And I feel like good, and I've talked about it, but like good, like a good musician, like a set, you know, a band, a set, a DJ, like the ones that are the most compelling, the best shows are the ones that they take you throughout. Like they put you in places and put you in emotions that they want to. Like, you know, if you're just like jumping up and down the whole show, but it's like, it's that song that lets you breathe for a second, that lets you appreciate the whole thing, and then they can take you to another place.
Right,
you know?
right. And set that mood to transition into the final finale, and you're like, wow, oh shit, this is crazy.
Right, like I was happy, I was sad, I also was like, you know what I mean?
Buying that Gatorade now, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's it. I think these are some solid steps for anyone listening. We hope that you can apply this to it, and thank you, Mike, for for sharing not only your footage, but with the whole squad, the whole BWNC squad, but being a member of Black Window Cream, paying attention to everyone that's out there. That's also what's cool to note about this, yo. If you're interested in competing in this contest, it's not just like you're competing for a Fire monitor or some Amazon gift cards. It's the fact that Mike is now actively seeing the content that's coming from this. And not even just Mike, Epidemic is seeing this. And these are both people that hire editors. Like, these are people that do that on top of us. And you know what I mean? Like, within Black Window Cream, like, the eyeballs that come on to contests like this, I think is so worth it when it comes down to it. And I know we can prove that from past contests because all of our homies in Black Window Cream have been put on ever since they've like won this stuff. So go hard in this. We appreciate you, Mike. And you know, someone's gonna get all these prizes. I'm excited to watch this stuff.
It's always dope to see how people cook stuff up.
I know.
And everyone go check out Mike's stuff. If you haven't already, it's his website and reel and all his pieces are just like they make you reconsider everything.
We're gonna post Mike's edit from the footage that you guys are gonna be cutting. We'll post that on our Instagram once once all the submissions are done, so you guys can see what he did with it. And then I'm excited to see how people go neck to neck with him, because Mike, they might be better than you, bro.
I hope it is, because I have less and less time to edit these days. And like you said, a few times now in Black Window Cream, I put out some edit posts, hired a few homies off there. Don't want to say names, but crazy results. Been a returning client to a few.
Oh, that's
and
dope.
The more and more, tools I have in my toolbox and editors and VFX and whatever, like whatever skill you got and niche you got, put it into this edit. And whether you're a story editor or you're, a flashy editor or whatever, use it, put it in here. And it'll be awesome to see what everyone can come up with.
I love that. That's fire.
That's a podcast right there, people. This is a good one. I love this one. All right, well, we'll talk to you later, Mike. We appreciate you, dog. All right, that's it for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed all the tips that we provided in this. And I think that, learning from Mike, it's an opportunity, and I'm always honored to have discussions with Mike. Do not forget the contest, okay? Registration is available right now. Contest ends on the 12th. Winners picked on the 15th. Link is in the description of this podcast episode. It's also in the link in our bio on Instagram. So make sure to sign up. Let us know how it's going. Feel free to message us along the way. I also like it when people tease us with a couple clips. If you wanted to make us happy, we like to see what you're cooking when you're cooking it up. But that's it. Anything else? No.
That was a dope episode, though.
It was a really dope episode. Yo, we're so tired right now, yo. All right, we out of here. I'm going to go chug coffee. Bye.